But they didn't care about it enough to change it. If you cared so much a while ago, change the law back then.
Question number 3, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister and asks, does he stand by his statement that John Banks has, quote, got a version of events, others have a different version, it's not for me to forensically go through that, end quote, and if so, whose job is it to hold his ministers to account for the veracity of their statements?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member is referring to statements made to the police whose job it is to assess the evidence before them. I have no responsibility for assessing evidence given to the New Zealand Police. However, I would note that the police decided there was, quote, insufficient evidence to consider a prosecution under section 134(1) of the Local Electoral Act.
Metiria Turei.
Why does the Prime Minister believe John Banks when John Banks says that he did not read his donations declaration even though he signed it, despite comments by John Banks' Ministerial Press Secretary that he did read the documents and that his campaign treasurer went over the declaration with him?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, because I accept the Minister at his word.
Point of order.
Point of order, Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I seek leave to table an email exchange between John Banks' press secretary and a New Zealand Herald journalist, where the press secretary first claims that John Banks read the declaration and later clarifies that John Banks' campaign treasurer went over the form with John Banks, dated 13 September 2012.
Leave is sought to table that documentation. Is there any objection? There is no objection. Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is it a new policy of the Prime Minister's that ministers are not responsible for documents that they sign? And is this a new don't read, don't care defence on Planet Key?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, no, and I'd refer the member to the fact that the document was signed when he was not a minister.
Supplementary.
Metiria Turei.
Will homeowners on Planet Key now be allowed to default on their mortgages and then claim it's okay because they didn't read the documents? Will business people on Planet Key now be allowed to sign illegal contracts?
Order.
Don't care?
I apologise to the member. I could not hear her question, and it's important I invite her to start again. Members must make it possible for the Speaker to hear the questions. Metiria Turei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will homeowners on Planet Key now be allowed to default on their mortgages and then claim it's okay because they didn't read the documents? Will business people on Planet Key now be allowed to sign illegal contracts under his new don't read, don't care defence?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know so much about Planet Key, but my expectations are it would be a lovely place to live. It would be beautifully governed. Golf courses would be plentiful. People would have plenty of holidays to enjoy their time. And what a wonderful place it would be. But I would expect people on such a place referred to as Nirvana to comply with the law. And that's what Mr. Banks did.
Supplementary.
Metiria Turei. Order, I want to hear this question. Metiria Turei.
Thank you.
Order, I want to hear the question.
Is there one standard for ordinary New Zealanders who are legally responsible for any statement or contract that they sign up to, and another for the Prime Minister's ministers who can put their name to whatever falsehoods they like as long as they live on Planet Key?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the question here is whether Mr. Banks complied with the law. And it's our belief he did. Now, as I was saying earlier, the law prior to the changes for central government would have seen many members of this parliament do things that would be illegal today but were legal back then. There are also successful candidates that have funnelled money through trusts, for instance, that are legal when it comes to the law. I expect people to comply with the law. That's pretty simple.
Metiria Turei.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Order, I want to hear this question.
Will his government now be changing the law so that enforcement agencies such as the Serious Fraud Office or the police can also apply his new don't read, don't care defence? Or again, is it only ministers on planet Key who are entitled to that privilege?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the member's missing the point. The point is whether the member complied with the law. The member may not like the law.
Order. I apologise to the Right Honourable Prime Minister, but I will not tolerate that kind of interjection. The member will not do that any further. He knows that is contrary to the standing orders of this House to accuse another member of lying. And I won't entertain a point of order on the matter. On that matter, it'll have to be. I've ruled on that matter. There can be no interjections accusing any member of this House of lying. If the member wishes to raise a point of order, he may, but it will be on a different matter.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to refer you to volume 633 of Hansard, page 5055, and the comments that day of Dr. the Honourable Lockwood Smith.
I'll look at them when I have time. The supplementary question, the...
Point of order, sir. The Prime Minister hadn't completed his answer.
Metiria Turei supplementary question.
Point of order, sir.
Point of order, Metiria Turei. I beg your pardon, is it a point?
The Prime Minister hadn't completed his answer, sir.
Well, I think the Prime Minister had long enough to answer it. To be fair.
I was enjoying myself, but
I think given the nature of the supplementary question, I think the Prime Minister had long enough to deal with it. Metiria Turei. Does the member have a further supplementary question? Question number 4, Mark. I beg your pardon, is this supplementary question?
It is.
The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
And I ask the Prime Minister, why is it a police incapacity because something was statute barred at the time, being interpreted by him as being a compliance with the law by Mr Banks?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, it's my belief that the member complied with the law because that's the assurance he gave me. And secondly, I refer to the press release from the police, who have said quite clearly they have decided there is insufficient evidence to consider a prosecution. And thirdly, Mr Speaker, there are actually other examples in this House which I won't bother going into, but there are some very esteemed members who have often said that looking at things, even when there was a prima facie case, would be trivial to pursue.
Question number... Sorry, is this a point of order? A point of order has been called. The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Mr Speaker, I asked the Prime Minister about a specific position in the law that the police have taken. They said that this matter was statute barred, and therefore they could not take it any further. Is he now the Speaker of the House?
Order. Order, I'm now on my feet. I'm not sure how... Order, the Leader of the House should know better than that. He doesn't need to lower himself to that level. Now, it does not help the order of the House for the member to do that. The member asked a question, and it would appear from what he's trying to say in the point of order he's raising that he wants the Prime Minister to give a legal opinion. Now, if I'm wrong on that, I'm happy to hear the member further. But it must relate to order and not whether or not the quality of the answer given by the Prime Minister. The Right Honourable Winston.
I'm not raising the question about the quality of the answer. I'm asking a question about whether the Prime Minister even addressed the question I asked.
To save time, I'm going to allow the member to repeat his question.
Righto. Thank you very much, sir. And I ask the Prime Minister, why is he taking the police incapacity which they expressed, because any action by them would have been statute barred against Mr Banks, to mean that Mr Banks complied with the law?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I'm not. I'm taking the member at his word.
Point of order, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Look, I frankly, sir, think that if the Prime Minister can get away with that, he might as well just get up and say rhubarb, because that's an answer.
Order. No, the House will... Order, the House will settle down. Order, I'm on my feet and the House will settle down. House will settle down. The question asked why was the Prime Minister not taking what the member alleges in a report with respect to something being statute barred rather than and instead choosing to interpret that the member has not broken the law. And the Prime Minister's answer to that was that he took the member's word that he hadn't broken the law. And that is an answer to that question. I think when one analyses the question asked and the answer given, it may not have been exactly the answer being sought, but I have to accept that is an answer to the question why the Prime Minister has done that. Question number 4, Mark Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question to the Minister of Justice.